Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the world, and welcome to today's HDI webinar, The Future of the IT Support Center. Today's webinar is brought to you by LogMeIn Rescue, and there's a link to their website right in the Attachments tab on your BrightTalk window. HDI is where service and support professionals belong. And we'd like to remind you not to miss the early bird pricing for the new Service Management World Conference, October 15th through 17th in Orlando, Florida. Register by today. There's a link in the Attachments tab. You can connect with HDI on Twitter, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and in our members-only community, HDI Connect. That's of high value. You get input from your peers, and you can ask very, very specific questions of them, and they will help you. I'm Roy Atkinson. I'm HDI's Senior Writer Analyst, and we have just a few housekeeping announcements before you begin. If you're experiencing any technical problems, please refresh your browser. That's the best thing you can do to clear up any issues you're having, audio or video. You can participate in the Q&A session by asking questions at any time during the webcast, and they will be answered during the Q&A session toward the end. You can download the slides from today's presentation by opening the Attachments tab on your BrightTalk screen, and I see that a few of you have already done that. And the slides will advance automatically throughout the event. You don't need to do anything. There will be audience polls today, and you can respond in the Vote tab by the presentation window. So I will ask you to locate those tabs, the Attachments tab and the Vote tab, and take advantage of those particular features of BrightTalk. Today's webinar will be available on demand shortly after the completion of this live webcast, and you'll receive an email reminder to let you know it's available if you want to come back and check in tomorrow or next week or next month or share it with somebody else on your team. It will be available on demand. With me today is Stephen Smith, who's an experienced product marketer and technology evangelist, serving as the Senior Manager of Product Marketing for LogMeIn Rescue. With over 30 years of experience, Stephen has experience in both technical support, IT systems engineering, product marketing, where he currently works on the go-to-market strategy, uncovering market trends and opportunities, and new product feature validation and evolution for LogMeIn Rescue. Welcome, Stephen.
Thank you, Roy. Good to be here.
So today we're going to be talking a lot about emerging technologies, and everywhere you look, you read about artificial intelligence and automation and how things are going to go. And so what does that do in terms of changing the support center and how we think about it and how we skill for it? And this is a very interesting stat that I turned up in my research for this. Human-digital interface is becoming more and more important. 95% of people believe they need new skills to stay relevant at work, and that is nowhere more true than in the technology field, which is where we are. And a few years ago, we did a research report about the skills necessary for the coming millennium, and what we discovered was that most support center leaders felt that the curiosity and ability to explore new technologies and at the same time the human interface as well was right up there at the top of the skill set list. And that's really what we're talking about here, being on top of the human digital interface. So what does that look like, and what's going on out there right now? The future obviously will be expanded services. Year over year over year in our HDI research, we find that there are more customers, more applications, more devices being supported, and the scope of service has to continue expanding. And because it's expanding and can't be known simply by one person, or can't be or shouldn't be siloed in individuals' heads, there's more demand for knowledge management. How do you communicate what you know about the various devices and systems and applications that are being supported by your organization? The answer to that question is knowledge and sharing of knowledge. And so the demand for knowledge management increases, and even more so when we start looking at things like bots, chat bots, and any other automation. You have to know what it is that you're automating, and your bot has to know where to look to get the information that somebody is seeking, say, in a chat window. And so you've got to be on top of that knowledge management to make sure that the information is relevant, up to date, and correct. Nobody is suffering from an excess of budget in the technology arena today. Everybody's dealing with very slim budgets. Do more with less is a motto, and it's tough. And so even as far as cost is concerned, organizations are looking for automation, artificial intelligence, natural language processing, and machine learning, any way that those things can help to take some of the burden of cost off the support center. And it certainly depends on how your organization looks at the support center. Is it a value center or is it a cost center? And in some ways that is beginning to change because support centers have gotten pretty smart about showing themselves as valuable. So what I'd like to find out right at the top here, let's ask you a question and see where you are in this in the scheme of implementing new technologies. So let's ask the question, are you currently planning or implementing automation for support? And if you go to your Vote tab there on your window, you'll be able to respond. Or you can say we're actively looking for ways to automate. We've automated some support processes. We have invested in automation tools. We currently have no specific plans to automate. So go ahead and answer that question. We'll share the results with you. And very interesting so far. We currently have exactly a 50-50 split, but I'll keep the voting open for a little bit. All right, and then another 5 seconds or so. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop the voting, and I will read you the results. 36% of you say we're actively looking for ways to use automation. An equal number are looking. You have already automated some support processes, so you're in early days as far as automation is concerned. About 4% of you have invested in tools for automation, and currently no specific plans. About a fifth of you, 22%. So a very interesting split there. 36% are either looking for ways or automated some, and about a fifth of you have no plans to automate. So very interesting. Okay, let's continue. We'll have a couple of more polls later on, so stay tuned. So what does all this automation and artificial intelligence and natural language processing, what does that all mean in terms of support? Well, a lot of it means that the easier work is going to go away because what you automate, generally speaking, are those simple, repetitive processes that you do every day. You know what the steps are. You know what the answers are. It's very clear what course of action you take when a particular question comes up or a particular issue arises. You do 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. If you can do that, if you can express a solution in those simple terms, that's something that you should look at automating. So if it's a simple, repeatable process, it's a good place to start with automation. So that's the easier stuff, the stuff that gets repeated all the time. So complexity then becomes the norm because the easy work is gone, the more complex work is what remains. And as I said, with the growth of devices and the number of customers and the sorts of applications that people are doing now, and especially with the dependence on technology that organizations have. I mean, every organization to some extent is dependent on technology. I wouldn't go so far as to say every company is a technology company, but we certainly depend on the technologies to communicate, to get things done, and to sell our products and services and develop our products and services. And one thing is for certain, speed is of the essence. I like to say that business today is like Jeff Goldblum in Jurassic Park, where he's trying to stay away from the T-Rex and he's saying, must go faster, must go faster. Everybody wants their business to go as fast as possible and stay ahead of the competition. And in order to do that, especially in the face of complexity, collaboration is crucial. And there again, we've become more and more dependent on collaboration tools and collaboration technologies because we have things like distributed teams, and we have remote workers and all of those things trying to stay in touch and collaborate on the work that needs to be done. So collaboration is absolutely crucial. This is an example. This factory that we're looking at, which is a BMW production plant here in South Carolina, that's about 10 minutes away from where I'm sitting right now. And they have heavily automated their processes and increased their production tremendously in this particular plant. But what they've also discovered is that people plus technology are really where the bang is for the buck. They haven't over-automated, and you can see from the stats quoted in the Wall Street Journal, they've more than doubled their workforce over the past few years and increased their production at the same time while being very specific about what they automate and what they don't. And so they have the humans doing the more creative and insightful types of work, and the robots doing the easy stuff. As I mentioned, the simple, repetitive processes like putting the rubber lining around the doors of the cars, that's something that robots do. But making sure that those seals are fitted properly, that's something that the humans do. So that combination is very, very important as we go forward in this age of advanced technology. And we've seen results like that from our own research in-house. We did a State of IT report last year, and what we found was that in 45% of organizations, the work has shifted. It hasn't disappeared at all. In fact, in over 12% of organizations, the IT department has actually added full-time employees after automation, and in just over 8%, they have reduced the number of workers, and about a third has stayed the same. So in most organizations, the work has shifted, and there's a balance between what the automation is doing and what the people are doing. It's just the type of work is different. So the more creative, inventive tasks are done by humans, and the repetitive processes are done by bots or automation of some kind. Interesting, isn't it? So let's throw this into the mix, too. About 70% of workers, it's predicted by Gartner and others, are going to be mobile by 2020. And I don't know how your organization is, but in my world, I know I'm very highly mobile, travel a lot, and a lot of people that I work with are also highly mobile and travel all over the place. So staying in communication with the office is extremely important. Getting help as we need it in different time zones and different situations, airports, lounges, et cetera, is extremely important. And according to this, 105 million workers are going to be mobile by 2020. So that's a huge percentage of the workforce, and it changes things radically from the days when we could just hop down the hallway and fix somebody's issue. Of course, there are office campuses and office buildings around, but at the same time, people are amazingly mobile today, and it really increases the challenge to support to make sure that they are getting what they need in terms of stability and the ability to get things addressed rapidly. Would you not agree, Stephen?
Yeah, definitely, without a doubt.
And as I mentioned earlier, as services expand across organizations and self-service becomes expected, and we'll find out a little bit more about self-service as we proceed, the need for excellent knowledge increases. So Obviously, in order to provide self-service or to provide those chatbot type answers from a knowledge base, you've got to be right on top of your knowledge management. It's exceedingly important. That is certainly becoming more and more of a key to success of your organization, and it doesn't really matter what type of organization you are. The scale matters, of course, and the scope of your support matters, of course, but no matter what type of organization you're in, whether it's IT, healthcare IT, or if it's higher education, or if it's production, or if it's corporate office, that knowledge that is shared is exceedingly important. Being published to self-service, it's got to be complete, correct, it's got to be accessible. People have to be able to understand what they're looking at and do the fixes that they're being provided. So knowledge is key. And also, we can't leave it there without saying that customer experience is exceedingly important. Customers are much more likely to not do business with organizations that don't have good customer experience. And employee experience is emerging as a real area of concentration. As we have discovered in our own numbers, satisfied employees, happy employees, and engaged employees provide better customer service and have happier customers to the tune of about 5% difference in customer satisfaction. So if the employees have a good experience, and that means everything from being able to get at those collaboration tools and do the work that they're supposed to be doing with the proper technologies, up to the fact that they have a good work environment and a fair amount of work-life balance, whatever that means, I'm not sure. And neither is anybody else, but you know what I'm talking about. If they're able to proceed in a good and effective manner, if they feel effective and are being effective for their organizations, life is going to be better not only for that organization but also for its customers. And so that's what it's really all about, right? Making sure that the customers get what they need so that they become loyal and happy and therefore succeed. And Stephen, I know that you have quite a bit of interesting content here around some of these topics that I've raised, so take it away.
Yeah, that's right, Roy. Thanks. And we are going to focus on the employee experience and customer experience, and how and some of the steps you can take in your support organization to really thrive in that experience. But first, we are going to launch a poll, and it's really focused on what the support is that you that you're offering today. So, Roy, if you could just launch that poll for me, the second one, which is: are you focused more on assisted or unassisted support? And by unassisted support, we mean self-service. So in the earlier poll, I think most of you are either looking at some sort of automated process or have actually started implementing that. So really, this is just a gauge on, what is that focus? Is it assisted support? Is it self-service, unassisted support? And later on, we'll talk a little bit more about AI as well.
Good. So if we let people are voting, yeah.
Yeah. And right now, it's heavily weighted.
It is heavily one-sided at this point.
Okay.
And we'll give it a few more seconds so people have an opportunity to vote, and then I'll stop the voting. And okay, 5 more seconds, and we'll go ahead and stop the vote, and let's look at the results.
Okay, so we have 80% of the audience is focused more on assisted support. So that's very heavily weighted for that assisted support. So hopefully over the next few slides, we can look at ways to maybe shift the balance a little bit more to unassisted support and that self-service. And maybe some of the barriers to entry for that are around technology as well. So we'll take a look at how we can improve that. So really, it starts with 3 key steps to improve that service that you offer. And we talked about customer experience and employee experience. You really need to look at the trends and take advantage of those trends, and also of new processes that you can implement in your organization. And then look at the new technology, advantage of new technology. Roy touched earlier on bots and automation. So we're going to take a look deeper into these 3 steps. And we'll start with the first one. You know, today we want quick answers, and we want a quick resolution, and we want quick support. We don't really want to be on the phone for hours or have to schedule a time to receive support. In fact, many people contacting support is something that they absolutely dread and put off for a while, mainly because they find it cumbersome or time-consuming. You know, you get put on hold. That hold generation is somewhat disappearing. But today, though, with just some basic training, people can change the way that they communicate with support. For example, some people find that they prefer to tweet their provider to request support, and others prefer chat. But you can take advantage of that. You push people to Slack or to an online portal or anything that works in your organization. But however you do it, make that the fastest path to resolution. And by doing that, people will just funnel that way generally. Also, very often, you're not the first stop for help anymore. Your teams aren't that first stop. And you don't always know what content is out there on the internet that your end users are seeing. If they use Google or another search engine, the content they get could be accurate information, or it could be complex or just completely incorrect. But at the end of the day, it's great that end users are looking for answers on their own, but it's a bad thing if you don't know what answers they may find. So you can look at resolving this in 2 ways. If you're a customer support organization, take a look online and see where your searches rank. If they are lower than outside resources, look into SEO or other ways to increase that ranking. If you're supporting employees, make sure they know where to go for answers. And importantly, make sure that that place actually has the answers. As an employee, it's really frustrating if you go somewhere internally to expect to see an answer, and the answers are really old or just plain irrelevant. Then take advantage of new processes. First one that comes to mind is shift left, and you've probably heard about this from HDI, and it does work. It helps you take advantage of trends that are popping up, push people to proper channels, and teach them to resolve issues on their own. By doing this, it will reduce the amount of issues you need to have someone actually work on, which means you'll be able to handle more important and urgent requests. It does increase agent satisfaction as the lower levels of support start handling issues faster, and higher levels of support can work on urgent things like patching servers or high-value projects. So that's just one way to increase that employee experience. The second process to take advantage of is skills-based routing. It may seem an obvious one, but very often companies are just going with a first in, first out approach, or the loudest voice wins process. If you have the right systems in place, you will know what the type of issue is the person is facing, what steps they have tried already, and potentially what that issue could be. Now you have the right detail in place to help determine who should handle the situation and solve it on the first contact. So before we go on, I'd just like to launch another poll. So Roy, if you wouldn't mind launching this poll. Now this one's aimed at artificial intelligence, AI. So the question is your organization seeing AI as a strategic opportunity for the organization? Is it a forced directive, or is it both? Is it fall somewhere in between? So if you could answer the poll question there.
strategic
and we'll see it.
opportunity, or is it being directed from on high, as it were, from corporate leadership to say you will do this?
Yeah, sometimes you get that's right. Sometimes you get the buzzwords, and people jump on a buzzword and don't really understand the impact that implementing that can have. Now, whether it's positive or negative, if you get the wrong technology, same with self-service. If you implement the wrong technology, it's going to have a negative effect, and your end users, your customers, just won't adopt it. This is what we were going back to earlier. It's that sort of natural path to the fastest resolution.
All right. Okay. I'm going to stop the voting there. We'll close the poll and we'll look at the results.
Okay.
All right. Voting is stopped.
Okie dokie.
We have about 70% say it's a strategic opportunity.
Yep.
About 28% say it's both strategic opportunity and force directive, and 1% say it's a force directive.
Okay, that's interesting. And I think, the technology will certainly sort of start, or as technology improves, it'll certainly start to lean more towards that organization seeing it more as a strategic opportunity. Okay, thanks, Roy. So now we're going to take a look at how you can take advantage of the trends and how you can implement the right processes with new technology. So let's focus on two areas as a starting point. First, how do you help customers to self-service? So through a variety of technologies, you can make this process simple and adaptive. For example, if you can build help bots into your chat tools or other systems that are used in your organization. Imagine if you had a Slack channel to talk to IT and there was an AI-driven bot that understood what you were asking and could help find the answer quickly. So answers to common questions like, how do I change my password? How can I connect visitors to a guest Wi-Fi? How do I set up a new printer? All these questions should be resolved quickly and should be able to be resolved by self-service, and thus reducing the issues, the repetitive issues to your support team. There is technology out there that can link your knowledge base to messaging tools like Slack and Microsoft Teams, and they use that natural language processing and artificial intelligence that Roy was talking about earlier. These really help end users get support the way that they want to be helped. Plus, if you can build up your knowledge base with better answers, more predictive responses and faster resolutions. So one of the biggest challenges we hear today around self-service is building and maintaining the knowledge base. So actually having the knowledge articles and keeping those knowledge articles current is a major challenge. So if you have the technology that will actually build and maintain that for you, it's a win-win.
And if I can just jump in there for a second, Stephen, as those of you who have looked at knowledge management are undoubtedly aware, by knowledge articles, it doesn't always mean that it's a document, like a Word document or a blog entry or that type of a thing. It may be just a question of exposing a certain amount of data appropriately to the end user. For example, this is an example I use all the time. Delta Airlines has a mobile app, and when you board a Delta flight and you have the mobile app, it automatically tracks your baggage. And it tells you right in the app and right on your screen, it pops up a little message that says, the bag has been loaded onto this flight. The bag has been offloaded at this airport. The bag has been loaded onto your next flight. So that you automatically know where that bag is at all times. And basically all Delta did was just open up their baggage tracking database to the individual end user so that you can see where your bag is at all times. That's extremely useful knowledge. And when I'm traveling, I like to know that the bag made it to the right flight so that I know that I'm going to have the clothes to change into for my presentation when I get to my destination. And it can be something as simple as that, or a little video that shows you how to do something. It doesn't have to be a wordy article, and I think that's something that people lose sight of from time to time.
Sure. It's a good point. Yeah. Actually, just taking a look at some of the questions that have come in as well, and I'm just gonna call out one. And the question is, I think I don't know if it's the elephant in the room, but it's certainly one that comes up a lot. Will automation replace support analysts, or the help desk agents? So I think I'll read the rest of the question. It says, we saw some information today about workers and automation working together, but there seems there's a lot of info about workers losing jobs. I think there's a couple of ways to look at that. If you're a help desk or a support agent, a support organization with a really top-heavy support team, then you're probably in the minority. I think one of the ways to look at this and position this is if you use automation, if you use that self-service to get rid of those mundane questions, the password resets, the simple things that should be solved. No one really wants to take several of those calls per day. So the balance really is addressing those problems easily for your customers, and then focusing on where your support team can be more valuable, different projects that they can work on, and actually increasing the value of your support organizations to your customers. So it is kind of an elephant in the room, but I think really from what we're learning, it's not necessarily the case that people are going to lose their jobs. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, Roy.
I do, and I think that what's going to be important to the support organization as a whole is to make sure that they realize that they will need a different set of skills going forward. As you say, the simple one and done password reset, reboot your computer, and everything will be fine. Those things are not going to be the future. Those are going to be addressed either by self-healing technologies or by some sort of easy answer system, bot-provided chat, or however we do it. And so what needs to be emphasized is that the skills of the front line have to be elevated, right? With the more complicated work coming down in shift left, so getting more things that are well documented coming down from, say, level 2, plus the fact that the easy peasy one and done stuff is now pretty much gone. Of course, there'll always be some of those calls, but most of it gone. What's left, as I said earlier, is the complicated, complex information to be disseminated to the end users and things to be troubleshooted and worked through, and more research to be done, and all that type of complexity that we have to deal with. And so the skill set needs to be a little bit different, and in some cases it's going to be more technical skill. The customer service skills at the front line are not going to go away. They have to be there simply because people expect that they're going to have a good experience when they need support, and you're going to treat them as a professional, et cetera. But I think the technical side of it is going to have to ramp up, and certainly the field of view that analysts have is going to be broader. And the more creative and troubleshooting and knowledge-producing types of skills are going to become more and more important as time goes on.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, there's another couple of questions, but I think we'll come to those at the end. So we talked about really sort of helping customers to self-serve, but not all issues will be solved by self-service, as we've discussed. So it's important that the technology provides the end user with a simple way to connect to the support organization and create a ticket if they're not able to self-serve, which leads to the second area that technology can help. If the user can't find that answer themselves, you can use remote support technology to solve the issue for them quickly. Now, remote support has been around for a long time, but it is adapting. So that deep level remote support is still necessary, but not for all problems. When I talk about deep level remote support, I mean more about having to download endpoints to receive support. And that's not always necessary. So why use a long process to solve the basic problem? If you have the right support solution, you can identify the problem and resolve it in minutes and get the end user back to their lives quickly. What you don't want to do is fight with technology that's supposed to help solve the situation. And you don't want your customers or your end users to fight that technology when they already have a problem. So you just want to get in and get out quickly. You need to make sure that that solution is as frictionless as possible. The other thing to consider when looking at another tool, at a remote support tool, is how will it integrate into your workflow, and will it integrate easily? If you do provide that seamless experience for your technicians, for your help desks, well, that should be mission critical. But basically, if you do provide that, they can run that tool easily and they can resolve problems quickly. They're working in one solution, in one product, and they have other products integrated. It really is a benefit for resolving issues faster, getting people into sessions quickly. And the great tools that are out there today allow you to connect to different users across different operating systems in different ways. So that faster and easier support results in faster resolution and satisfied customers and the end users. So I think, at the end of the day, Roy, you mentioned doing more with less. So at the end of the day, if you do take advantage of the trends, it will get easier. You will be able to lower support costs by reducing technician turnover, by increasing their experience, and thus improving that end user satisfaction. And you'll also reduce the number of tickets or incidents that require the human intervention. So lowering support costs will be achieved. Of course, with that, you'll also see a faster ticket resolution time as you're optimizing your workflow to embrace the strengths of your team. We talked about that earlier with the, our job's going to be at risk. And also, you'll increase your team morale by providing a better experience for them. And by improving your team morale, then the satisfaction of your end users will also grow as well because they're receiving the great support. So in the end, you really can do more with less. So I just wanted to take a few moments to talk about LogMeIn remote support solution, which is LogMeIn Rescue. No matter the device, Rescue does let you connect in seconds. And, as we've already discussed, that's important to help increase the customer satisfaction and decrease those support costs. So that's something that that Rescue as a product is really focused on. And some of the ways we do that, if we look at some of the functionality of Rescue, obviously it includes remote control and screen sharing, but it's across multiple platforms. And I think, when you look at the tool if you're looking at a remote support tool, don't just think about the cost, think about how it fits in with your current processes and what's the problem you're trying to solve for your customers, and does that tool actually address those problems? So things like easily being able to configure settings, pulling diagnostic information without actually having to go into a screen sharing session, just at the click of a button. We mentioned earlier about not having to do that deep level support all the time. It's not always necessary. So if you can gather information that will help you diagnose and troubleshoot and resolve an issue without doing that screen sharing, that's a bonus as well. Having robust reporting and management of your team. If you think about reports, it's really important to be able to have an accountable track of what support sessions you've done, and maybe the length of time the support sessions have taken, who was in there, who was on the support session, what activity took place, did a file get transferred. All these things are important to make ourselves really accountable for the support that they're giving to your customers. And of course, if you're supporting mobile devices, which probably many of you are, not necessarily the devices, although of course you can do that. A lot of it now is about supporting apps. You think about apps, we've all got apps on our mobile phone, but more importantly on the tablets as well. So it's important that that tool can actually support the apps that you're provisioning to your customers. Okay, so let's take a look at some of these questions that are coming in, Roy.
Yeah, there's some really interesting questions here, and I'm going to start with this one because this is one that I don't think I've seen this question come in before quite in this way. What suggestions would you have for an IT department supporting a relatively aged workforce hesitant to adapt to change in newer technologies, as well as an industry, truck repair, that is focused more on manual labor tasks? So kind of a double whammy. You have an older workforce and an industry that's focused on manual labor. So how do any of these newer technologies fit in? And I can think of some excellent ways. But did you have any thoughts there, Stephen?
Yeah, and I think one of the statements we called out earlier was letting people get support in the way that they want. So it's not all about forcing everybody down the self-service channel. There will be people that want to pick up the phone, but mostly because of their experiences that they've already had. So, sort of the more mature workforce are used to picking up the phone for support because there hasn't been an alternative. And so what you really have to demonstrate is there is a viable alternative, and it's a lot less painful or potentially a lot less painful than picking up the phone and talking to support. So really it's by picking that right technology, by introducing it in your organization as a way that really does show the benefit, and then people will naturally progress down that path.
I agree with that, and also think about things like being able to provide simple, short how-to videos that are very easy to find for people. I think that every age group can benefit from videos, and they're used to seeing television and videos and looking at YouTube and so forth. And I think that providing those videos, and in a case where you're involved in truck repair, think about the opportunity to combine knowledge and how-to videos or instructions for both the trucks and the IT stuff. There's no reason that says, as a matter of fact, there's a lot of good information that says it shouldn't be siloed. It should be part of the same operation. So if I need support in learning about how to get this set of brakes onto a 1986 model truck, or if I need some help and support in fixing a particular problem or getting a particular thing onto my computer, the source of that knowledge can in fact be the same knowledge base, as long as the things in that knowledge base are easy to find and are correct. And so if you broaden it out and think of it that way, and maybe look at some ways in which your end users are currently accessing knowledge, not only for IT support, but also to get their jobs done. Where do they get that information that they need? Is it paper manuals? Is it online manuals? How are they getting that? And try to tailor your knowledge to fit their patterns, as Stephen said. It's really important. Let's take a look at... oh, sorry, Stephen. Go ahead.
I was just going to say there's another one. There's a question on there about when a request for help is received via other means other than phone, like Twitter, how do you verify identity for security purposes, i.e. a password reset? I think that's an important one to call out. Really, if it's something like a password reset, so if the request comes from an anonymous source, which it would do with something like Twitter, where they're not authenticated in your system, if it's a request for a password reset, pretty much the method to reset the password is going to involve somehow having access to your internal systems, or at least some knowledge of that. So it really depends on the information you share back. If I think of using that as an example, how we do internal password resets internally at LogMeIn, of course we can use self-service to do that on our own Slack channels, but what you would do is really you have to direct that question through an authenticator. So Slack being if you're using Slack or any other messenger that's approved internally, would be a great way to actually drive that request through that channel. Also, in some cases you have to be on a network to change the password, which can be frustrating and a barrier. But I think really what you need to do for those security type questions is limit the amount of information you give out through those anonymous channels, but direct them through a source that does have some security internally.
And there can be ways to pass information. I mean, even as far as Twitter is concerned, although any of the public social media channels are iffy for things as important as password reset, that might be something that you don't offer. But if you were to get a request, certainly, getting them into a secure or a more secure channel is one way to do it. Another way is to have them get a piece of information that, such as a code via mobile phone, like two-factor authentication. It gives you a code. So, and a lot of times to verify your email address or something like that, you'll have to enter a code that you receive via text. So there are ways to do that. There's certainly ways to verify that you're talking to who you think you're talking to when you get a request over different channels. Some information that they have, what the two requirements for a secure transaction are something they have and something they know. So something they have might be an RSA code or something like that. Something they know might be their boss's name and their employee identification number. So there's ways to do it. And this is a good one. I like this question a lot. Do you have a clear definition of what a bot is? We had an executive come back from a conference. Danger territory, right there. A couple of weeks ago, and they talked about bots. The executive came back and asked our CIO how many bots we were using. I don't think my organization clearly understands what bots are. So a bot is essentially a set of code that performs a certain task, and it can be defined however you want it to be. Like a chat bot would be something that responds via text, or it could, and by text I mean either in a chat window or via SMS or something. It performs an automated task that's defined in a certain way. Usually bots are perform a closed set of tasks, so it's almost like a discrete piece of code that's portable from place to place. And then you have things like the Chaos Monkey at Netflix, which is a wonderful example. The Chaos Monkey is essentially some code that goes around inside Netflix server environment and breaks stuff at random during production time, uptime. And the idea behind that is to make Netflix as impervious to downtime as possible. So Chaos Monkey runs around and breaks stuff, and Netflix has taught itself how to be resilient and keep functioning no matter what Chaos Monkey breaks. So that would be a type of bot. Did you have something to add to that, Stephen?
No, I wasn't familiar with the Chaos Monkey, but that's actually quite interesting. That's very brave of them to do that as well. But yeah, no, I think there's as Roy said, there are various different bots, but I think even it's how you implement a certain bot into the rest of your process. So they really have to work with your other systems. I mean, that sounds obvious to say, but if it's a chatbot, it's how does it respond? Where does it get that information from? Does it learn from those questions? I think that's the other part of a bot. Where's the responses coming from? Is it just a list that you provided, sort of scripted answers? Or does it actually learn? Does it use machine learning or that artificial intelligence to put that back? So there's a number of different ways you can use bots, depending on your circumstances, really.
Yeah, and I think if you think of a bot as a kind of an applet, it's a small application that has a given set of features, and as Stephen said, it might be just a repetitive one that's relatively not smart, or it could be a bot that has some machine learning processed in so that it learns how people react to it and more about where to get information, that type of thing. So it gets smarter as time goes on. But it's basically a discrete set of code that can be applied in a given way. So it doesn't do everything. It does one thing and usually does it in a completely autonomous fashion. So it responds to people's texts, it answers people's questions, it directs people to specific things in a knowledge base, etc. So nothing too complex there. It's about one of the easier forms of automation that are available these days, and there's lots of ways to learn how to build them out there. And I think it's becoming fairly common that a chatbot, one use that I've seen that was extremely effective was for triage. So somebody comes into a chat window, and the first thing the bot asks is, how can I help you today? And it will offer maybe 3 or 4 options. Is it this thing? Is it that thing? Do you need something new? Is it a password reset? Is it a whatever? And it takes that first level of triage out, and then if it can't offer any help beyond that, maybe that's all it does, and directs people to the appropriate portion of the service desk from there. So there's lots and lots of ways to apply the whole idea of bots. It's a good question, because just to say bots, it's like I got a question a few weeks ago at HDI that said our CIO says we need to buy artificial intelligence. Well, that is not something that stands by itself. It's part of something else. Artificial intelligence is built into certain applications or systems, and so it depends on what's around it. Everything depends on its environment. So cool. And then we have kind of a follow-up question here. What's the appetite of the current user community for bot-driven support? I'm seeing a lot more colleagues interested in having some live interactions via phone, text, tweet, or chat. I fear the bot is less personal. Yeah, that's a big topic of conversation, not only in the tech support world, but also generally in customer service as well. And I think that bots can be impersonal, and I think one of the dangers that people have started at least to wake up to is that they shouldn't try to disguise bot interactions as human interactions. That people see through that pretty quickly. And I think that as long as people know that they're talking to a bot and expect the type of interactions they're going to get from that, I think they're okay. And then as complexity ramps up in their question or their problem, they're going to look for humans because humans have things like qualities like empathy, which bots don't. Would you add to that, Stephen?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point of not trying to trick the end user into thinking that they're actually chatting with the human or the response is coming from the human when they're not. It'd be interesting to I know we probably can't really, but it'd be interesting to really gauge why they're more interested in having live interactions. And I would, I kind of hazard a guess that they've had some pretty poor experiences with chat, and as the technology improves, that should go away. And of course, it depends on the type of industry that you're in and the challenge that you have, the issue that you have. If it does need something more personal, but generally speaking, if you've had a good experience, then I think it would sound like a lot of these this feedback might come from negative experience.
Yeah, I think that's true, and I know that people have tried some really rudimentary bot usage in places like social media, and so you request help from a given organization, and the answer you get is the same in every case. It's, "We're sorry that happened. Please email us at this address," and that's not helpful. If I wanted to email you, I would have done that. And so that can be a very poor experience. However, if that bot can help you quickly triage and get you to the right person faster, so much the better. I heard last week about an organization that has some automation set up, and they know they had some really advanced analytics done on their history of tickets. And what they discovered was, in one case, 80% of the tickets in one particular category were resolved by two people. And so instead of knocking the ticket around and eventually winding up where the resolution could happen, they're directing it to those two people right off the bat. And so the resolutions were coming faster. And so sometimes it can be something relatively simple like that. I mean, that's not really complex automation. It's just being smart about how you automate. So it can be very helpful, and as you say, it largely depends on a person's individual experience, as does everything, right? All those customer satisfaction surveys we've sent out there, subjective, every one of them. So interesting. Based on your experience, what are the most common challenges for multi-language support center and AI automation implementation solutions? Did you have something specific on that? I do have a little bit to say on that if you want, Stephen.
Yeah, again, I think it comes down to legacy. The newer technology. I know LogMeIn recently acquired a company called NanoRep, which is all about bots. And their multi-language support is phenomenal. I mean, they're a company that were based out of Egypt, so it's not American-based. So, that was top of mind really for them. So, again, I think it really comes down to the technology. If it's just translating in the way that Google Translate would translate into the language that you need, I think the real problem is around. We talked about it being less personal. If it's sort of robotic translation, it's going to be less personal. It's going to be a poor experience. But if it's translated well, if your support is driven, if you're offering support in the regions, in multiple regions, then obviously you have to have that language support, and being able to have a bot that provides that support in that language is key for that experience.
Absolutely, and it's true. Even if analysts are presented with the ability to rapidly get translated questions and provide translated answers back to people, we did some research last year, and it turned out that multilingual support was more important in the technical support field than we thought. We hadn't done any research in that area until last year, and it turned out that we really needed to look at it more directly. But there are some incredible technology out there as far as language processing is concerned. So definitely be looking in that direction. It can really help you. Okay, what else we have? Who will be primarily responsible for remote support? Will it be level 2 or desktop support? Stephen, I know we have some numbers there, but what do you know about that? Yeah,
I think it really depends on the size of your organization and how that team is structured. How many tiers that you have. Ultimately, if level 1 can be handled, level 0 is really self-service. So you could say level 1 would be responsible for remote support. But I think, it really does depend on the size of your team, how that's structured, and the type of support that you're offering. But your self-service and automation is sort of that level 0, and or even that sort of level -1 if you want to think about machine learning. But yeah, I don't know. What do you think, Roy?
Right. Well, it is certainly right now. It was neck and neck for level 1 and level 2 or desktop support. Right now, level 1 service desk is providing more remote support than desktop support is. So I think that trend will continue. And we are just about out of time here. So I'm just going to wrap up by saying thank you so much for attending today. Please rate the webinar before you leave. This webcast is copyright 2018 by United Business Media, LLC. The presentation materials are owned by or copyrighted, if that is the case, by HDI, which is solely responsible for its content, and the individual speakers who are solely responsible for their content and their opinions. On behalf of HDI, I would like to thank Stephen Smith for being here today, LogMeIn for sponsoring. Have a great day, and join us on July 17th for our next webinar, which will be centered around workforce management. So see you then. Thank you.
Thanks all. Thanks, Roy.